What is the price of prejudice? For one airline, it wasn't just a PR scandal or a viral video. It was a 9-figure invoice delivered in cold, hard cash. This is the story of how a single act of discrimination, a quiet moment of profound disrespect aimed at a black man in a first-class lounge, triggered a corporate cataclysm. It's a story of snap judgments and hidden power, where a condescending gate agent and her arrogant supervisor tried to enforce an unspoken rule about who belongs where. They thought they were just putting someone in his place. They had no idea they were speaking to the one man who could dismantle their company's future with a single text message. They tried to send him to the back of the plane. Instead, he sent their entire corporation to the back of the line. The air in Dr. Samuel Sterling's penthouse office was still a stark contrast to the whirlwind of innovation that defined his life. Below, the sprawling metropolis of Chicago hummed with a rhythm he knew intimately, the pulse of commerce ambition and relentless forward motion. Samuel, however, was focused on a different horizon, one that existed beyond the stratosphere. At 46, he possessed a stillness that was often mistaken for aloofness. It was, in reality, the deep calm of a man who operates on a plane of thought several steps ahead of everyone else. His company, Sterling Dynamics, wasn't just a market leader, it was a market creator. They didn't build widgets, they built the future. Their latest breakthrough was codenamed Ethelred, a carbon nanofiber composite, so light and strong it was poised to redefine aerospace engineering. It was 10 times stronger than steel, at a fraction of the weight, capable of withstanding extreme temperatures that would turn conventional alloys to slag. For years it was a theoretical holy grail. Samuel's team had made it a reality, and now the world was coming to him. The contract on his desk, bound in the regal blue of Aerowork Dynamics Germany's premier aerospace conglomerate, was the culmination of that work. It was a partnership valued at an initial $200 million, a figure that was merely the entry point. This deal would see Sterling Dynamics become the exclusive supplier of Ethelred for Aeroworks' new generation of hypersonic commercial jets. It was a legacy project, the kind that reshapes industries and solidifies a company's name in the annals of history. The final signing ceremony was in 2 days in Munich. The flight was tonight. Samuel wasn't a man given to ostentatious displays of wealth. His suit was bespoke, but understated his watch, a masterpiece of engineering rather than a beacon of jewels. He preferred the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment over the loud clamor of applause. He had grown up in Gary, Indiana, a city forged in steel and left to rust. He'd seen firsthand what happened when innovation ceased. That memory was the fuel for his relentless drive. He'd earned scholarships then, a doctorate in material science from MIT, working 3 jobs to support himself. He'd founded Sterling Dynamics with a handful of patents and a belief that the only true limitations were those of imagination. His COO, Isabel Reed, entered the office without knocking a privilege afforded to her alone. She was a sharp, pragmatic woman whose loyalty was matched only by her efficiency. "Everything is set," she said, placing a slim folio on his desk. "Flight GV Yavin 42, departing O'Hare at 9:15 p.m. Seat 1A. Your bags are already with the courier. The car is waiting downstairs." Samuel nodded his eyes, still on the city below. The Aeroworker team confirmed the final details. Hans Zimmermann emailed an hour ago. "They're ecstatic." He said, and I quote, "We are not just signing a contract. We are stepping into the future with Dr. Sterling." Isabel allowed herself a small, rare smile. "They're rolling out the red carpet in Munich." Samuel finally turned from the window. "Good. Let's not keep the future waiting." He picked up the folio. Inside were his ticket passport and a single sheet of paper with the contact information for the key Aeroverki executives. He travelled light. His mind was his primary luggage, and it was already in Germany, running simulations on the materials, stress tolerance, and manufacturing scalability. As he rode the private elevator down to the garage, he changed out of his suit into his travel attire, a simple, well-tailored black tracksuit made of a technical fabric and a pair of minimalist high-end sneakers. It was his uniform for long-haul flights, uncompromising comfort for a mind that needed to be sharp upon landing. It was practical, efficient, and devoid of pretense. To Samuel, what he wore was functional. He had no interest in performing wealth for strangers in an airport terminal. He had a $200 million contract to sign. He didn't need the approval of a gate agent. The drive to O'Hare International Airport was smooth. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and silver, a river of human endeavor flowing past his window. He felt a familiar, quiet hum of anticipation. This trip wasn't just business. It was the validation of a lifetime of work, a promise he'd made to the young boy in Gary, who dreamed of building things that could touch the sky. As his car pulled up to the curb of the international terminal, he had no way of knowing that the greatest test of his principles wouldn't be in a state-of-the-art laboratory or a high-stakes boardroom, but in the brightly lit, sterile confines of Gate K-19. The ascent was nearly complete. The turbulence was about to begin. The Global Voyager Airlines first-class lounge at O'Hare was an oasis of beige tranquility designed to insulate its patrons from the frantic energy of the main concourse. Soft jazz trickled from hidden speakers, and the clinking of ice in glasses provided a gentle percussion. It was a space of curated quiet, where the world's movers and shakers could pause before being whisked across continents. Dr. Samuel Sterling found a secluded armchair, ordered a bottle of still water, and opened his tablet to review the final schematics of the Ethelred manufacturing process. He was completely absorbed, his focus an impenetrable shield. 40 minutes before boarding, he closed his tablet and made his way to the gate. The pre-boarding announcement for first-class passengers had just been made. A short line of well-heeled travelers was already forming a family in matching cashmere sweaters, a stern-faced businessman barking into a phone, and an elegant silver-haired woman in her late 60s, Ms. Eleanor Vance, who watched the proceedings with an air of detached amusement. Samuel took his place at the end of the line, his folio tucked under his arm. The gate agent at the podium was a woman in her mid-40s named Brenda Hoskins. She had a severe haircut and an expression that suggested she'd seen it all and was impressed by none of it. She processed the first few passengers with a mechanical efficiency, her lips a thin, unsmiling line. When Samuel stepped forward and presented his boarding pass and passport, her rhythm broke. Her eyes flickered from the Seat 1A, printed on the pass, down to his black tracksuit and sneakers, and then up to his face. It was a barely perceptible assessment, lasting no more than a second, but it was laden with a lifetime of assumptions. The professional smile she'd managed for the previous passengers vanished. "I need to see your ticket," she said, her tone flat. "That is my ticket," Samuel replied calmly, gesturing to the boarding pass in her hand. Brenda tapped a finger on the document. "No, the full ticket." "The receipt." A flicker of annoyance, quickly suppressed, went through Samuel. "My COO handles the bookings. The boarding pass is what's required to board. Is there a problem?" "There might be," she said, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial, condescending register. "Sometimes there are mix-ups with these seats." She avoided looking directly at him, instead focusing on her computer screen, her fingers typing with deliberate slowness. Ms. Eleanor Vance, who had just passed through the gate, paused a few feet away, ostensibly to adjust her carry-on, but her sharp eyes were fixed, on the exchange. "The system is showing an alert," Brenda announced to the screen, though it was clearly for his benefit. "I'm going to need you to step aside for a moment, sir. I need to verify this." Samuel did not move. He kept his voice even devoid of the anger that was beginning to coil in his gut. "Verify what exactly? My name is Samuel Sterling. The name on the pass is Samuel Sterling. The passport confirms it. The seat is 1A. Whoa, sir, there's no need to get agitated," Brenda said, a smug little smirk playing on her lips. She was enjoying this. She was the keeper of the gate, the arbiter of who belonged. "First class is completely full tonight, and we have to make sure everyone is in their correct assigned seat. Sometimes people get the wrong idea about their upgrades." The implication was as thick and polluted as smog. He hadn't earned this. He'd somehow stumbled into it. The other passengers in the economy line were beginning to stare, their curiosity piqued by the hold-up at the front. The scene was precisely what she wanted, a small public lesson in social order. Samuel's gaze hardened. The calm exterior remained, but inside a switch had been flipped. He had faced down corporate raiders, patent trolls, and the ingrained skepticism of investors who couldn't see past his skin color. He had fought battles in boardrooms with intellect and strategy. He would not, however, engage in a petty power struggle at an airport gate. "I assure you there is no mix-up," he said, his voice now carrying a new weight, a quiet authority that made the man behind him shift uncomfortably. "My ticket was purchased for seat 1A. If your system is showing an alert, it is a problem with your system, not with my ticket. I suggest you resolve it quickly. The plane is boarding." Brenda bristled at his tone. The challenge to her authority was a personal affront. She puffed up her chest, her name tag, Brenda H., Customer Service Supervisor, seeming to gleam with self-importance. "Sir, I'm the one who decides who boards this plane, and right now you're not boarding. We have a very nice seat for you at the back of the aircraft in 38B. It's a middle seat, but I'm sure you'll be comfortable. We can sort out the fare difference later." She said it with an air of finality, as if offering a generous, undeserved compromise. She hadn't even looked at her screen again. She had simply decided. He didn't belong in 1A, so she would put him in 38B. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. It wasn't just an error or misunderstanding. It was a deliberate, malicious act of demotion. She was trying to send him quite literally to the back of the bus. Samuel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply looked her in the eye, his gaze unwavering. "Let me be perfectly clear. I am not stepping aside. I am not moving to seat 38B. I will be sitting in the seat I paid for, which is 1A. If you cannot facilitate that, I need to speak with your manager. Now." The confrontation had reached a stalemate. Brenda, flush with her perceived power, had backed herself into a corner. She had publicly challenged a man who refused to be publicly humiliated. She reached for her radio, her voice laced with manufactured distress. "Calling station manager Finch to gate K19. We have a passenger dispute. A difficult passenger." The die was cast. The gatekeeper had made her move, unaware that she wasn't just holding up a passenger. She was holding a lit match to a $200 million contract. And the station manager was on his way with a canister of gasoline. Gregory Finch arrived with the puffed-up urgency of a man who believed his presence alone could resolve any conflict. He was in his early 50s, with a neatly trimmed mustache and a suit that was just a little too tight, giving him an air of constant low-level compression. He exuded an aura of procedural certainty, a man who found comfort in rule books and hierarchies. He approached the podium not as a mediator, but as a judge arriving to deliver a verdict he'd already decided upon. He didn't make eye contact with Samuel. Instead, He directed his attention exclusively to Brenda Hoskins, creating an immediate and deliberate power dynamic. They were the team. Samuel was the problem. "What's the issue here, Brenda?" Finch asked, his voice a low, authoritative hum. "This gentleman," Brenda began, gesturing vaguely toward Samuel with her pen, "is holding a first-class boarding pass, but the system flagged it. He's refusing to cooperate. I offered him an alternative seat to resolve the situation until we can figure out the ticketing error, but he became aggressive." The lies were layered thick and fast. Flagged. Aggressive. Refusing to cooperate. It was a carefully constructed narrative designed to paint Samuel as an unruly troublemaker. Finch nodded slowly, absorbing her version of events as gospel. He finally turned his gaze to Samuel, his eyes performing the same dismissive scan Brenda's had lingering for a moment on the simple tracksuit. "Sir," Finch started, his tone oozing with condescension, "I'm Gregory Finch, the station manager. I understand there's been some confusion with your seating." "There is no confusion," Samuel stated, his patience wearing dangerously thin. "There is only a refusal to honor a valid ticket." Finch held up a placating hand. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. These things happen. Our booking system is complex. Sometimes third-party vendors issue tickets that don't properly sync with our manifest. What likely happened is that your seat was double-booked, and the system automatically reassigned you. Brenda's offer to place you in 38B was a proactive customer service solution. It was a masterclass in corporate doublespeak. He had validated his employee, blamed a mysterious third party, and reframed an insult as customer service, all without acknowledging the reality of the situation. Samuel could feel the eyes of the remaining passengers on him. The public nature of the humiliation was the point. It was a spectacle of reinforcement. "Mr. Finch," Samuel said, his voice dangerously low, "scan the ticket. Look at my name. Look at my reservation in your system. It was booked directly through your corporate services portal. There is no third-party vendor. There is no double booking. There is only your employee making an assumption based on her own biases." Finch's face tightened. The direct accusation of bias, of racism, was a line he wasn't prepared for. It was easier to deal with a ticketing error than a fundamental flaw in his and his employee's character. He decided to double down. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. Making baseless accusations isn't going to help matters," he snapped. "Frankly, your aggressive posture is becoming a security concern." He glanced meaningfully toward the two TSA agents, standing about 50 feet away. It was a veiled threat, and they both knew it. From nearby, Ms. Eleanor Vance, who had been watching the entire exchange with growing indignation, finally stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear and carrying the unmistakable weight of old money and earned authority. "I was standing right here. The only person being aggressive is your staff." Finch turned, momentarily thrown off by this unexpected intervention. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is an airline matter. I am a Global Voyager Executive Platinum member for 27 years. She cut him off coolly, "and I am a witness. This gentleman was perfectly calm. Your agent refused to scan his ticket, properly presumed it was fraudulent, and then offered him a middle seat in economy. It was a disgusting display." Finch's composure cracked. Being challenged by a customer of her apparent stature was not in his playbook. He shot a venomous glare at Brenda, whose smugness had begun to curdle into panic. He turned back to the computer, his fingers now flying across the keyboard with genuine urgency. He typed in Samuel's name. The screen flashed. There it was. Dr. Samuel Sterling, Seat 1A, ticketed directly. Purchase price $11,450. A corporate account flagged as VIP, partner level. Notes on the file indicated he was a crucial partner for a major European industrial contract. A cold dread washed over Gregory Finch. The colour drained from his face. The ticketing error was that he and Brenda had just attempted to publicly humiliate one of the airline's most important passengers. All of his procedural bluster, all of his arrogant dismissals evaporated into a cloud of sickening realization. He looked up at Samuel, his expression a pathetic mix of shock and dawning horror. The authority was gone, replaced by the desperate scramble of a man who saw his career flashing before his eyes. "Ah," Finch stammered, clearing his throat. "It seems there was a system lag. A refresh issue. My apologies, Dr. Sterling. Of course your seat is 1A. Please accept our sincerest apologies for the delay." He gestured weakly toward the jet bridge. Brenda Hoskins stood frozen, her face ashen. She looked like she was going to be sick. Samuel didn't acknowledge the apology. It was a pathetic self-serving retraction offered only after his status had been verified. The insult had been public. The apology was a panicked whisper. He picked up his boarding pass from the counter, where Brenda had left it like a piece of garbage. He gave Finch a long, hard look, a look that promised consequences, and then turned to Ms. Vance. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet and sincere. She simply nodded. "Some things need to be said." Without another word, Samuel Sterling walked down the jet bridge. The brightly lit tunnel felt like a passage into a different realm. He had won the small, ugly battle at the gate. But as he stepped onto the plane and was greeted by the cloying, overly cheerful flight attendant, he knew the war was far from over. He had been judged dismissed and threatened, and for a company that prided itself on precision logistics and service, it was an unforgivable systemic failure. A failure that would carry a price tag far greater than Gregory Finch could ever comprehend. The first-class cabin of the Global Voyager 777 was a cocoon of manufactured luxury. Pod-like seats upholstered in soft leather warm lighting, and the gentle hum of the engines created an atmosphere of serene exclusivity. A flight attendant with a practiced, gleaming smile approached Samuel as he stored his small carry-on in the overhead bin. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Sterling," she said, her tone a little too bright, a little too eager. "Can I get you a pre-departure glass of champagne or perhaps some orange juice?" The message had clearly been relayed from the gate. "Handle with extreme care. We messed up." The apology tour had begun. "Just water, please," Samuel said, his voice neutral. He settled into seat 1A, the very territory he had just been forced to defend. The leather was cool against his skin. He looked out the small oval window at the flashing lights of the O'Hare ground crew. The plane was an engineering marvel, a testament to precision and reliability. It was a shame, he thought, that the company operating it lacked the same qualities in its people. The flight attendant returned with a crystal glass of water on a small linen doily. "We are so sorry for the confusion back at the gate." She offered her smile unwavering. "Sometimes our systems can be so temperamental. Blame the system." The corporate mantra. Samuel simply nodded, offering no absolution. He wanted to be left alone. She eventually got the hint and retreated to the galley. He could feel the lingering stares of the other first-class passengers. Some were curious, others sympathetic. Ms. Vance, seated across the aisle in 2D, gave him a small, understanding nod before putting on her noise-cancelling headphones. For the first hour of the flight, Samuel didn't work. He didn't open his tablet. He simply sat the glass of water untouched on the console beside him. He replayed the incident in his mind, not with anger, but with cold, analytical precision. It wasn't about Brenda Hoskins's personal prejudice or Gregory Finch's managerial incompetence. It was about what they represented, They were the face of Global Voyager Airlines. They were the front line. And on that front line, their first instinct was to assume the worst of him based on his appearance. His partnership with Aerowerk Dynamics was built on a foundation of absolute trust and meticulous attention to detail. They were building hypersonic aircraft. The tolerances for error were zero. The logistics of supplying Ethelred components across continents had to be flawless, managed by partners who shared an obsessive commitment to excellence. What did Global Voyager's actions say about their commitment to excellence? They had failed at the most basic level of human interaction. Their system, both human and technical, had identified him not as a valued partner, but as a problem to be managed, a threat to be contained, a person to be put in his place. If this was how they handled a simple passenger boarding, how could they be trusted with the complex, time-sensitive, and highly secure shipment of proprietary aerospace materials worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a single delayed shipment, a single mishandled pallet, a single security lapse could cascade into billion-dollar catastrophes? The incident at the gate wasn't just an insult, it was a red flag. It was a data point indicating a deep systemic rot within the company's culture, a culture of sloppiness, of arrogance, of poor judgment. He looked at the airline's logo stitched into the headrest in front of him, a stylized golden bird in flight. It was meant to symbolize speed, grace, and global reach. To him, it now symbolized something else, entirely a hollow brand, a promise of quality that was only skin deep. True quality, true excellence was ingrained. It was in every employee, every process, every decision. It wasn't something you could fake with champagne and leather seats. The decision coalesced in his mind not with a fiery burst of anger, but with the cold, hard certainty of a mathematical proof. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge was an emotional, messy impulse. This was a business decision, a risk assessment, and Global Voyager Airlines was a risk he was no longer willing to take. He picked up his phone, connecting to the plane's expensive and sluggish Wi-Fi. He opened his encrypted messaging app, a direct and secure line to his COO, Isabel Reed. Her icon showed her as active. She was likely monitoring the flight's progress from her home office. He typed a short, unambiguous message. Every word was chosen with deliberate care. Isabel, there was an incident at the gate, a fundamental breach of professional and ethical standards by Global Voyager staff. Their corporate culture is incompatible with our operational requirements. This partnership is untenable. He paused, his thumb hovering over the screen. He took a sip of his water. It tasted of nothing. He continued typing. Initiate Protocol Omega. The Aerowerk logistics contract with Global Voyager is terminated, effective immediately. Cite irreconcilable differences in corporate values and a complete loss of confidence in their service integrity. Inform Aerowerk first thing in the morning. Begin sourcing a new logistics partner by noon. I want options on my desk when I land. Protocol Omega was a term they had devised for catastrophic partner failure, allowing for the instant, no-questions-asked dissolution of a major contract. It had only been used once before, when a supplier was caught using falsified materials data. He read the message one last time. It was a death sentence for the airline's most significant corporate contract of the decade. He felt no satisfaction, only a grim sense of necessity. He hit send. A few seconds later, 3 dots appeared as Isabel typed her reply. It was as always concise and to the point. Acknowledged. Protocol Omega is in motion. We'll handle it. Focus on the signing. Sorry you had to deal with that. Samuel closed the app and put his phone away. He finally opened his tablet and went back to the Ethelred schematics. Outside the window, the plane was soaring at 35,000 feet, a golden bird gliding through the dark. But far below on the ground, a $200 million pillar of its financial future had just been vaporized, and they had absolutely no idea. The sun had barely risen over the East Coast when the first tremor hit the corporate headquarters of Global Voyager Airlines in Atlanta. Robert Maxwell, the senior vice president of corporate partnerships, was on his treadmill trying to sweat out the calories from a steak dinner the night before when his phone began to buzz insistently. It was his direct line, the one reserved for the highest priority clients. The caller ID read, Hans Zimmermann, Aerowerker Dynamics. Maxwell's heart leapt. A call this early from their most important new partner could only mean one of two things. Something was very good, or something was catastrophically wrong. Hans, good morning, he answered, trying to keep the breathlessness out of his voice. To what do I owe the pleasure? The voice on the other end was pure ice. Maxwell, there is no pleasure. I am calling to inform you that Aerowerk is activating the partner integrity clause in our agreement. We are pulling out. The deal is off. Robert Maxwell stumbled, nearly falling off the treadmill. He gripped the machine's handles, the rubber suddenly slick with sweat. What, Hans? What are you talking about? We're days away from the announcement. The press releases are already drafted. Your primary partner, Sterling Dynamics, has terminated their exclusive logistics contract with you. Zimmermann said, his German accent making every word sound like a hammer blow. We just received a formal notice. Irreconcilable differences in corporate values. Dr. Sterling is the cornerstone of this entire project. His technology, his materials. Aerowerk will not and cannot proceed with a logistics partner that our most crucial supplier has deemed untrustworthy. It is a matter of confidence, you understand. We have lost all confidence in Global Voyager. Do not contact us again. Our legal team will be in touch. The line went dead. Maxwell stood in stunned silence, the hum of the dead call echoing in his ear. The treadmill belt whirred uselessly beneath his feet. Sterling Dynamics terminated irreconcilable differences. It made no sense. He had personally overseen the final stages of that contract. It was ironclad, a masterpiece of corporate synergy. His mind raced. What could have possibly happened overnight? Dr. Sterling was on their flight, GV7422, at that very moment winging his way to Munich for the signing. Panic, cold and sharp, began to set in. He fumbled for his phone again, his hands shaking. He called his executive assistant. Get me everything on last night's flight GV742 from O'Hare to Munich passenger manifest crew list and any and all gate reports. Any incident logs, no matter how minor. I want them in my inbox 5 minutes ago. Minutes later, his laptop pinged. The first document he opened was the gate report from K9. It was mostly standard, but one entry stood out, logged by station manager Gregory Finch, minor passenger dispute regarding seating. Resolved amicably. Passenger boarded. Minor dispute. It felt too coincidental. He scrolled down to the passenger manifest and found the name Sterling Samuel. Seat 1A. A note was attached, a frantic after-the-fact addition from Finch VIP partner. Ensure premium in-flight service. It still didn't add up. A minor dispute wouldn't scuttle a $200 million deal. Then another email arrived. It was from Isabel Reed, the COO of Sterling Dynamics. It had been sent at 3:48 a.m. Eastern Time. The subject line was chillingly simple: termination of corporate contract, GVSD 85B. The body of the email was brutally efficient, Mr. Maxwell. This letter serves as formal notification that Sterling Dynamics is immediately terminating our corporate logistics and travel partnership, GVSD 85B. This decision is based on a severe incident that occurred on September 5th, 2025, involving our CEO, Dr. Samuel Sterling, prior to his departure on flight GV742. The actions of your ground staff at O'Hare International Airport demonstrated a profound lack of professionalism and integrity, reflecting a corporate culture that is fundamentally incompatible with the principles of Sterling Dynamics. We have lost all faith in your organization's ability to act as a reliable and respectable partner. All future shipments and travel will be rerouted through a new carrier. Our legal team will handle the dissolution of the existing agreements. Sincerely, Isabel Reed, COO Sterling Dynamics, Robert Maxwell, felt like he was going to throw up. He read the email 3 times, the words blurring together. Severe incident. Profound lack of professionalism. Corporate culture. He slammed his laptop shut. This wasn't a minor dispute. This was a full-blown catastrophe. His phone rang again. This time the caller ID made his blood run cold. Richard Harrington, CEO. He answered on the first ring. Robert, the CEO's voice, boomed, devoid of any pleasantries. I just got a frantic call from a board member who saw our pre-market stock. It's down 7%. He's hearing rumors that the AeroWork deal collapsed. Tell me this is a bad dream. Maxwell took a deep breath. Richard, it's not a dream. It's real. AeroWork pulled out. Sterling Dynamics terminated their contract with us overnight. Silence. A heavy, dangerous silence crackled on the line. Explain, Harrington finally said, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. It happened at O'Hare last night. Dr. Sterling was on his way to Munich. There was an incident at the gate. What kind of incident costs this company $200 million before breakfast? Harrington roared the whisper, gone, replaced by pure rage. I don't have the details yet, Maxwell stammered. I'm trying to find out. There was a dispute over his seat. The station manager's report says it was minor. Minor? Harrington's laugh was a harsh, ugly sound. A minor dispute just blew a hole in our fourth quarter earnings, big enough to fly a 747 through. Get me the security footage from that gate. Get me the names of every employee who looked at, spoke to, or breathed in the same direction as Samuel Sterling. I want them in my office by noon. And get me a direct line to Sterling's plane. I don't care if you have to call the pilot himself. Fix this, Robert, or update your resume. The cascade had begun. A single act of prejudice at Gate K19 had now reached the highest echelons of power, transforming from a personal insult into a full-fledged corporate crisis that was wiping out shareholder value with every passing minute. The emergency meeting in CEO Richard Harrington's office felt less like a conference and more like an inquisition. The sprawling room with its panoramic views of the Atlanta skyline was thick with a tension that muted the morning light. Harrington, a man whose silver hair and tailored suits were fixtures in business magazines, paced like a caged wolf. Robert Maxwell stood stiffly by the large monitor, looking pale and sleep-deprived. Show me, Harrington commanded, his voice raw. Maxwell clicked a mouse. The security footage from Gate K19 filled the screen. It was silent, but the narrative was brutally clear. They watched as Dr. Samuel Sterling, a man whose face was now seared into their minds, stood calmly at the podium. They watched Brenda Hoskins's dismissive body language, her condescending smirk. They saw her turn him away. They saw the arrival of Gregory Finch, his self-important strut, his finger-wagging lecture. They saw him ignore Samuel and confer exclusively with Brenda. Most damningly, they saw him gesture toward the distant TSA agents, a clear, unmistakable threat. And they saw the quiet dignity of Eleanor Vance, stepping in to intervene. Harrington watched the entire 2-minute exchange without blinking. When Finch's face finally registered the panic of realizing his mistake, Harrington slammed his hand down on the mahogany table, making a junior executive near the door jump. "That's it!" he roared. "That's the minor dispute." We lost the biggest partnership in this airline's history because a jumped-up gate agent and a tin-pot dictator of a station manager decided they didn't like the look of a man in a tracksuit, a man who was about to hand us a $200 million contract. It appears so. Richard, Maxwell said weakly. Get them on the line, now. Harrington snarled. Video conference. I want to see their faces. A few frantic clicks, later the faces of Brenda Hoskins and Gregory Finch materialized on a second screen. They were in a drab, windowless office back at O'Hare. The smugness and authority were gone. Their faces were etched with a fear so profound it was almost pitiable. Harrington walked right up to the screen, his presence dominating their small office, even from 1,000 miles away. Mr. Finch? Ms. Hoskins. He began, his voice deceptively calm. I have just had the distinct displeasure of watching your performance at Gate K9 last night, and I find myself with a question. Which part of the Global Voyager Customer Service Training Manual instructed you to publicly humiliate and threaten a VIP partner, accuse him of fraud, and attempt to relegate him to a middle seat in economy? Gregory Finch opened his mouth, but only a dry croak came out. He swallowed hard. Sir, Mr. Harrington, there was a misunderstanding. The system— Don't you dare say the word system to me. Harrington exploded. I saw the footage. The only system that malfunctioned was the one between your ears. You didn't look at the system. You looked at a black man in comfortable clothes and decided he didn't belong. You didn't see a partner. You saw a problem. And in doing so, you became the problem. He turned his piercing gaze to Brenda. And you instigated this. Your job is to facilitate boarding, not to play queen of your own little plastic fiefdom. Do you have any idea what you've done? Brenda Hoskins stared back, her eyes wide with terror. She shook her head, unable to speak. You have cost this company $200 million. You have jeopardized a $2 billion aerospace project. You have made us a laughingstock to our partners. Our stock is in freefall, and you have single-handedly destroyed this company's reputation for service and integrity. He paused, letting the weight of his words crush them. Your employment with Global Voyager Airlines is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Your final paychecks will be mailed to you. Don't bother asking for a reference. He motioned to Maxwell, who cut the video feed, leaving the screen black. The two faces, frozen in a mask of pure horror, vanished, but the reckoning was far from over. The news was already leaking. A financial blogger with sources inside Aerowerk had posted a cryptic message about a major U.S. airline losing a key European contract due to a service failure. The stock, which had stabilized slightly, began to plummet again. Harrington's phone buzzed. It was his direct line to flight GV742. After an hour of frantic work, they had managed to route a satellite call through the cockpit. Dr. Sterling's on the line, Maxwell announced. Harrington snatched the phone, his demeanor shifting instantly from predator to penitent. Dr. Sterling, Richard Harrington, CEO of Global Voyager. I am calling to offer my most profound and humble apologies for the absolutely unforgivable treatment you received at our Chicago terminal. The voice that came back was calm, clear, and utterly unmoved. Mr. Harrington, your apology is noted, and it is irrelevant. Irrelevant, Dr. Sterling. I assure you the employees responsible have been terminated. This is not who we are. It was an isolated incident. Was it? Samuel's voice cut through him. What I experienced was not an isolated incident, Mr. Harrington. It was a symptom of a culture. Your employees felt empowered to act the way they did. They felt secure. That tells me everything I need to know about Global Voyager. This isn't about two employees. It's about the company that created them, The trust is broken, and in my business, trust is not a negotiable commodity. The decision is final. My COO has already executed the termination clause." Harrington felt a final, desperate plea rise in his throat. "Please, doctor, let me fly to Munich. Let me meet with you. We can fix this. Anything you want. We will make a public apology. We will donate to a charity of your choice." "Mr. Harrington," Samuel said, his voice holding a note of finality that chilled the CEO to the bone, "my principles are not for sale, and my time is too valuable to waste on a partnership with a company I can no longer respect. I have a contract to sign with a new logistics partner to find. Goodbye." The line went dead. Richard Harrington slowly lowered the phone. He looked at the frantic faces of his executive team. He looked at the skyline of the city outside. He had built an empire of the skies, a global network of planes and people, and it had all been brought to its knees, not by a market crash or a terrorist attack, but by a simple, ugly act of prejudice at Gate K19. The reckoning had come, and the bill was far higher than he could ever have imagined. The fallout was not a gentle decline. It was a cliff dive. In the hyper-connected world of the 21st century, corporate reputations built over decades can be immolated in a single news cycle. The story of the incident at Gate K19, initially a whisper on niche financial blogs, was fanned into a raging inferno by an anonymous but impeccably detailed leak. Ms. Eleanor Vance, sitting in her study in Boston, had typed a carefully worded email to a trusted contact at a leading international newspaper. She had not acted out of malice, but from a deep-seated belief that sunlight is the best disinfectant. She simply laid out the facts. She had witnessed her status as a multi-decade elite flyer, lending her account unshakable credibility. The resulting headline was a brand killer. "Bias at 30,000 feet, how Global Voyager's culture of disrespect cost them a 200 meters deal over racial profiling." The article included damning details that could only have come from an eyewitness: the offer of seat 38B, the station manager's veiled threats, the condescending tone. The public outcry was immediate and immense. Social media became a crucible with #boycott Global Voyager, trending for 72 straight hours. The airline's carefully curated image of sophisticated, inclusive premium service was shattered, replaced by a portrait of petty bigotry and corporate arrogance. Inside the Global Voyager headquarters, the atmosphere was funereal. The emergency board meeting was held not in their usual polished conference room, but in a secure, soundproofed war room 2 floors below ground. Richard Harrington stood before the 10 board members, the faces on the video conference screens looking down at him like a digital tribunal. The real-time stock ticker displayed on a massive screen behind him was a river of blood-red numbers showing a catastrophic 22% drop in value, nearly $1.8 billion in evaporated market capitalization. This was the action of 2 rogue employees. Harrington argued, his voice strained, the usual confident timbre gone. It was an aberration, not a reflection of our corporate DNA. We have taken decisive action. They are gone. An elderly but formidable board member, a retired general named Peterson, leaned forward, his voice cutting through the excuses like shrapnel. "Don't insult our intelligence, Richard. A fish rots from the head. These rogue employees felt comfortable enough in your corporate culture to act as they did. They felt empowered. That's a leadership failure. That's your failure. We can recover," Harrington pleaded. "A new diversity initiative, a public campaign, a full-page apology in every major newspaper. It's too late for that." A sharp-witted woman named Julia Mendez, who represented their largest institutional investor, interjected. "You didn't just lose a contract. You lost the one thing we can't buy back: trust. You tried to call Dr. Sterling and he hung up on you. He identified the rot and refused to do business with it. What does that say to every other corporate partner we have? It says our brand is toxic. The vote was a mere formality. Richard Harrington was out. No golden parachute, no graceful early retirement. The press release would cite personal reasons, but everyone in the room knew the truth. He was being jettisoned to save the sinking ship. His final walk through the executive suite was a study in humiliation. The assistants who once jumped at his presence now avoided his gaze. He packed the contents of his desk photos of his family industry awards that now seemed meaningless into a cardboard box. As he rode the elevator down for the last time, he wasn't just a failed CEO. He was a cautionary tale. For Brenda Hoskins and Gregory Finch, the reckoning was far more intimate. They became pariahs. Gregory, with his years of managerial experience, thought he could land on his feet. He secured a final round interview for a director-level position at a smaller regional airline. The interview went well until the final question. "Your resume is impressive, Gregory Orhe," the VP of Operations said, folding his hands. "But I have to ask about your departure from Global Voyager. The official reason was restructuring, but your name was all over the press." Gregory felt the blood drain from his face. He tried to spin his pre-prepared narrative about a misunderstanding that was blown out of proportion, but the air in the room had turned to ice. The VP listened patiently before closing his notepad. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Finch. We'll be in touch." He never was. The message was clear: no one would touch the man who cost his last employer a 9-figure deal. 6 months later, his house was in foreclosure. Brenda's fate was a slow public shaming. She couldn't find work in any customer-facing role. She ended up taking a job stocking shelves on the night shift at a 24-hour superstore to make ends meet. One night, a group of college students recognized her. "Hey, you're the airline lady," one of them shouted, pulling out his phone. "The one who tried to move that rich guy to the back. Can we get a selfie?" Brenda fled to the break room, her face burning with a shame that was now her constant companion. In stark contrast, Dr. Samuel Sterling's trajectory continued its inexorable ascent. In Munich, the signing with Aerowerk Dynamics was a quiet affair, but the subsequent announcement of a new logistics partnership sent shockwaves through the industry. Samuel met with David Chen, the CEO of Atlas Air Cargo Global Voyager's fiercest competitor. The meeting was everything his encounter at Gate K-19 was not. Chen, a brilliant logistics strategist, began not by talking about money, but by asking about the molecular structure of Ethelred. He showed genuine intellectual curiosity and a deep respect for Samuel's work. "Dr. Sterling," Chen said, as they finalized the details of a new $250 million contract. "At Atlas, our philosophy is simple. We are in the business of moving valuable things, but the most valuable thing we handle every day is the trust of our partners. We are honored to have yours." Months later, the project was a triumph. The first hypersonic test flights were flawless. Sterling Dynamics became the undisputed global leader in advanced materials, and its valuation tripled. Samuel found himself on the cover of Science and business magazines, lauded as a visionary. One crisp autumn evening, he was back at MIT, a place of deep personal significance, to deliver a keynote address to a new class of engineering fellows. The auditorium was filled with bright, eager faces of every color and background. As he looked out at them, he saw himself, the young man from Gary, full of ambition, ready to build a different kind of future. He didn't speak of the Global Voyager incident. He didn't have to. Instead, he spoke about the hidden variables in every equation of success. Your calculations can be perfect, your materials flawless, Your design's revolutionary, he told them. But there will always be an invisible factor you must account for character. Your own and that of the people you choose to build with. Integrity is a load-bearing element. Respect is a non-negotiable tolerance. Do not partner with those who lack it. Do not work for those who compromise it. And never ever allow anyone to define your value or your place in the world. Your results will do that for you. Later that night, flying home on a private jet chartered from Atlas, he looked out the window at the blanket of stars. He felt no lingering anger, no sense of victory, only a profound and quiet affirmation. He had not set out to destroy a company or ruin careers. He had simply refused to accept a world that tried to diminish him. He had held a mirror up to an organization, and it had shattered under the weight of its own ugly reflection. Karma's final invoice had been delivered not as an act of revenge, but as a simple, unavoidable consequence. It was a business lesson written in the cold, hard currency of cause and effect for a world that still had so much to learn. And so the story of Dr. Samuel Sterling and Global Voyager Airlines comes to a close. It's a stark reminder that in our interconnected world, the actions of a single person can trigger a tidal wave of consequences, and that true power isn't about the title on your name tag, but the principles you're willing to stand by. The airline learned a lesson written in red ink on their balance sheets. Respect isn't just a courtesy, it's a cornerstone of good business. Prejudice is a liability that no company can afford. What started as a moment of quiet humiliation became a public lecture on the real-world cost of discrimination. If this story resonated with you, and if you believe that integrity and respect should always win the day, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about justice, karma, and the incredible moments when the powerful are held accountable. Click that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for listening.